Tonight, I have something very important to share with you. No, just kidding. I got nothing. If I'm doing my job right, I have nothing. Just presence. Just this moment. Whatever comes, if it means anything, if it has any relevance and any truth to it, comes from this moment, not from something that I plan to say. You ever have a dream like this? I used to have them when I was a child. You go into school, you're at school, you're sitting in the back of the classroom, and you have to make a presentation to the class, and you're totally prepared. You did your homework, you've brought in things to show, you've got everything really locked down. You've remembered to do everything. Everything is planned out, but you have this sneaking suspicion that you forgot something. So you look down and you notice, oh yes, pants. I forgot my pants. Somehow you got to school with no pants. And so now you're called to go to the front of the class and you're not wearing any pants. You're naked from the waist down. So that's an important thing to remember. You may remember what you're going to say, but perhaps you should also remember to put on pants. I don't know what that dream means, but it's not that uncommon. A lot of people have them. There's another type of a dream, more like the dreams that I have, or I have been having, which is you show up at school and it's the final exam, and you're like, your whole grade depends on this final exam. And you show up and you haven't even read the book. You don't even know what the book is. For the very first time, you see people looking at the book and go, okay, that's what the book is. So you haven't read any of it. You haven't done anything. You've done no preparation at all. And here's the final exam and you've got nothing. You know nothing. You look down and maybe you have your pants. That's it. You got your pants, but you don't have anything else. So you're probably not going to do too well in the exam. It's pretty hard to fake the whole thing when you haven't even read the book. You haven't attended a single class. You've missed every single class. You haven't read any of the books. You know nothing about what they're doing. And you show up and now it's time for the final exam. In my case, the dream is that I was a filmmaker. And as a filmmaker, as a film director and producer and writer, you prepare a lot because companies in commercial film companies are spending up to $500,000 on this film, just one little film. And they're spending a huge amount of money on it. Even a company like IBM or Time Warner, large companies like this that I work for, $500,000 is not chump change to them. It means a lot. And if the film doesn't go well, many people will lose their jobs, including people at very high level. Vice presidents will lose their jobs just because this one film didn't go well. So everyone's nervous. A lot depends on this. And of course, that's the end of my career if it doesn't go well. I mean, you'd only get one strike in this business, just one strike, especially when you're doing work at that kind of a level. There are no do-overs. There's no coming back from that. Your reputation is all around and it doesn't do well. And likewise, if you do well and you outperform, then that reputation also goes around and that can really help the career. But you only get one mistake. You can be on top of everything and one mistake and that's it. Similar to Hollywood. You don't do too well in Hollywood if you make a single mistake, if you really screw up. Although it's a little more forgiving than the commercial film business, which you don't come back from. So, so in this dream, I'm shooting the film, but I haven't written the script yet. And I'm trying to, on the day of the shoot, I've got all these actors and all this crew showing up. It's like running an army. There's so many people that you're in charge of as a director, and they're all asking me, as they always do, okay, what should we do now? What's the setup? What are the lines? Where's the script? And there's no script. I haven't done the script. I'm totally unprepared. I've I've never done this in my life. I've never missed a deadline while I was a filmmaker. And everything was extremely well prepared before I went in. But in this case, in this dream, it's not. There's no preparation at all. So I just show up and I have to hope that I can fake it, but it's pretty hard to fake it when you've got no script and you have no idea what you're doing. There's no preparation at all. So those are some dreams that I've had recently. And one of the things that it says to me is this very simple thing. I'll tell you two stories that will explain what this is and how I do the satsangs and how all awakened people pretty much do satsangs without any preparation at all, without thinking about what they're going to talk about, just sitting there, being present, and something rises up. And it rises up from presence, from stillness, from silence. That's what my job is, to get out of the way, not to prepare, to get out of the way. See, if we're preparing, we're in the way, aren't we? We're thinking we know what's going to happen in the moment. And we're preparing for it. We're trying to organize and structure the moment. So we prepare everything, and then in that moment, hopefully all those things that we're preparing will be appropriate to that moment. But the truth is they never really are. This moment is this moment. There is no way to prepare for it. It will never come again. Many of you know Gina Lake. She's a good friend of mine here in Sedona. And she told me that the first, I don't even think it was a CD yet. I think it was still audio tapes of Eckhart Tolle that she heard. She, put the tape in and started it, and there was music and everything. And then it was a time for Eckhart Tolle to speak. And it was just silence. There was just like 15 minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes of just pure silence. Maybe it wasn't 20. Maybe it was more like 10. But if you can imagine, you're hoping to listen to somebody speak in some wisdom, and all you hear is silence. No, like, I'm going to go into silence, no introduction, no hello, just nothing. So the only thing that most people would think, and she thought, is, well, the tape must have broke, It must have, tapes, when they break, nothing happens. Just like a CD is broken, it's not working, so you don't hear anything. And that's what she assumed, and she didn't think about it. And after like 10 minutes or so went by, she heard a voice, Eckhart Tolle's voice, and he said, "You may wonder why I wasn't speaking. I was waiting to see what I was going to say. I was waiting for this moment to express itself. And for 10 minutes or so, it didn't. Interesting. And it makes a great story. Just silence, waiting for the moment to express itself in words. And then after 10 minutes, it did. But it's a little strange, isn't it? To have this be, generally when we listen to it, when we buy an audio tape or a CD of a Satsang or something, we expect to hear something. We expect to hear some sound come out of it, and not just silence. And yet sometimes this silence is the best teaching there is. And maybe that was exactly what was going on in the situation with Eckhart Tolle. Maybe the greatest teaching was the silence before he started teaching. I didn't hear the CD, and it would be good if he spoke about that, and maybe he did. He's a pretty wise teacher and very connected. So he may have. So that Eckhart Tolle story is one thing. Here's another one from my experience in my life. I was on a retreat, a Thich Nhat Hanh retreat, and I'd been very involved with Thich Nhat Hanh Sangha for many years, 40 years. And So I was in the Order of Interbeing and helped to run the retreats and did all the stuff that we do in the Order of Interbeing, sort of, I guess you'd call it an inner circle of Thich Nhat Hanh Sangha, although there are many of us in it, but it's, it just means we take more responsibility. That's all, really. We just take more responsibility. And we do, and we're happy to do it, and it's all volunteer, and, it's wonderful, a wonderful group of people. So on the retreat, there was a night when people were going to be presenting the precepts. This is very important in a Sangha, is the precepts of how you live in a moral and ethical way, in an awakened way in life before you're awake. How do you live in this way? So this is what the precepts are, the 10 Commandments, things like that. This is how you live in a moral way. They're sort of rule guidelines that are better than what society gives you. A little more strict. For instance, no intoxicants. And in this case, people were going up and making a presentation. These were usually Dharma teachers or people like that were high up in the organization. And a friend of mine said that she had just been informed that she was going to receive the lamp transmission, which means to be a teacher, from Thich Nhat Hanh. And Thich Nhat Hanh had only this time to speak to her about it, and he wanted to spend like 20 minutes with her right then. But she was just about to go on the stage at this moment and do her presentation. So she asked me, she said, I have to go, can you do it for me? And I just said yes. That's basically when you're in this state of kind of great openness and oneness, you just say yes. You just say yes to everything. And it didn't cross my mind until later that the most thing I was afraid of doing was speaking before people, like public speaking. I was terrified of that. I would rather die than that. That was always my biggest fear. And that hadn't changed at that moment. And so I realized, oh, this is awkward. And I had no idea what I was going to say. And there were about 1,500 people in the audience. We were speaking to the whole Sangha on a retreat. So there were a lot of people there. And I had no idea what I was going to say. I mean, the subject matter was one of the precepts on sexuality, in how to live in sexuality in that way. And she gave me all these notes about her life, but they were completely irrelevant to what I could say. I would have to just talk about her experience and read through the notes. I didn't think that would work very well, so I couldn't do that. But I hoped that something would come to me. So I think I went on third. And so as I was waiting for people to go on, I hoped that while people were speaking, that something would come to me while they were speaking for me to say. And so the last person before me finished speaking and nothing had come. Nothing, just zero, blank, nothing. So with nothing to say, I was introduced and I went up in front of 1,500 people with nothing to say. And what could I do? And the interesting thing was I was not afraid at all. I had none of the normal fear that I would have when I'd prepared something or made a speech in school or whatever, which sometimes we were forced to do. And I had none of that fear because my worst fear had already happened. I was standing in front of all these people and I had nothing to say. That was like the worst fear that I could have, but it already happened. It already was this present moment. So there was no reason to be afraid of. That was what was happening. My worst fear was already, expressing in this moment. So there was no reason to fear it. It had already happened. Usually we're afraid of something that we don't want to happen. But when it's actually happening, there's no reason to be afraid anymore. And basically you're not. So I wasn't afraid, but still I had nothing to say. And people were waiting for me to say something, obviously, and had a microphone. And what I did is I looked into the audience and I felt these certain people's questions came to me so strongly as if they were speaking them to me. I could just see way out, halfway through, there was this guy and he had a question that was very deep to him. And so wanted to answer that question. Then another person had a question. 3 people had these questions that meant a lot to them. They were all 3 different questions. So I proceeded to answer their questions. I don't know how. I don't know how I knew what their questions were. I don't know how I knew how to answer them. I don't know anything. And I had no idea what I said. And afterwards, all these people came up to me and said, that was the most amazing teaching I'd ever heard. You were like an incredible teacher. And a number of people said this to me. So I said, oh, well, I guess I should look at what this is, because they videotaped everything. And I went up to the monk who was running the videotape, and I said, could I see this videotape? Because I figured I would take it and study it and practice doing the same thing, because it was so wonderful. And he said, it wasn't working. It wasn't working during that whole thing, and they were trying to fix it. So there are no videotapes of this. So I had no idea what I said. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll ask people why they thought it was so good. What did I say? And everybody had a completely different thing to tell me. So it didn't work in me understanding what I said. So I was just left with having no idea what I said. But something stuck in that. I came up, no planning, absolutely nothing, no idea of what I was going to say. And yet something came out of me that was truly wonderful, beautiful. And that was kind of the beginning of how I teach now. It's not through me, my planning, my doing, me, Peter, my experiences, although they can be used. It's something much deeper than that, something much truer than that, much beyond me. And because I had nothing to say, it left room for this to express itself. By itself. I mean, I had nothing to do with it. I don't even have a clue, still to this day, what I said. I just know that it touched people very deeply. Many people. And I realized also it was pretty obvious, because I was never good at making speeches. I was just like trembling and nervous and just not good. I was not a public speaker. And yet when I had nothing to say, I was. It wasn't me, but something would come through me that was wonderful, true, and really reached and touched people. It was an amazing learning, and it wouldn't have happened without my friend shoving this responsibility on me in the last minute at a retreat where I didn't say no to anything. Where I just said yes, and then I thought about it later and go, oh God, what did I get myself into? And that's amazing, wonderful, to be able to just let go, to be free, and allow something else to speak, something much truer, much more real. So all this nervousness and dreams about preparing is really about what? It's about this self, this separate self. If the separate self doesn't prepare, the separate self will be embarrassed. If the separate self is not wearing pants, the separate self will be embarrassed. So it's all about the separate self. Who prepares? The separate self prepares. The separate self practices, learns and studies, tries to do the best job it can so it will not be embarrassed, have success, rise up in the world, attain a position, have fame. All these things are the separate self, all of them. And if you make speeches or do anything in life from the perspective of a separate self, you know how stressful it is. You work really hard. Maybe the night before you're going to make a presentation, you're nervous and it's hard to sleep. You're not relaxed. You're stressed. You're fearful. It's not healthy. There's nothing really good about it. And yet somehow there's something else. Universe, totality, God, something more, whatever you want to call it, is always available to speak for you, to speak as you. Because in fact it is you. This separate self is not real. It's a limited role. One-time performance, 80 or 90 years, that's it. It's not what you truly are. Isn't it easier to let this do the work? Let this perform. Let this express itself. If you've never done this before, try it. See what happens. Take a risk. It doesn't have to be a big one. It doesn't have to be when you're talking in front of 1,500 people. Try it with just one person. Try it with anything you're doing, without another person. Try painting or writing, and you can always throw it away before anybody sees it. There's no risk there. No risk of being embarrassed, of failing. Try it in less demanding circumstances and see what happens. See if something doesn't come through that's more than what usually does. And if you open enough, far more than what usually does. And then pay attention to that. Appreciate that. Realize that. There is much more to you than you think. Much, much more. Beyond your wildest imagination. And you can let this come through. Effortlessly. Really, I mean effortlessly, because to make an effort is still you. You're still in the way when you're making an effort. You give up everything. You surrender everything and you let this speak. Let this take over. This is your true being, your true self. So sometimes in satsang I do have an idea, just a topic or something that occurs to me right before I go on usually, or maybe sometime earlier in the day, and I thought, oh, that would be useful. And I apologize for that. Because if I came completely empty-handed with nothing at all, then you would get something really special. You would get truth, unfiltered by my thoughts, my plans, my effort. I mean, the way we're taught, this sounds very lazy, doesn't it? Oh, God, this is so lazy. What about putting your nose to the grindstone? Well, as you know, if you've ever done that, I haven't, but it would be quite painful, wouldn't it? What would happen would just have a scraped up nose. But this is how we're trained to be, to work hard, to struggle, to make an effort. And when we make this effort, then we will have success. I mean, I live that way, and to a certain degree, it has some validity. I worked very hard as a film director. But the interesting thing was when my career really took off and I started winning all these international awards, it was actually because I surrendered. I let go of my control. And these film shoots, even though they were People were spending an enormous amount of money. For me, we're more like a party. It was more just like, yay, let's go and have fun. Let's be open and see what happens. I mean, I had a script. I was prepared, but I totally would go off script and totally use whatever arose in the moment. And that's when things really started becoming magical. It wasn't my controlling and effort and me, the director. And God, I can tell you that there's few careers that have more ego than commercial film directors. If you know anything about this field, you looked at Backstage magazine or any of these magazines, you know, they feature the director's name is like the whole page is just the director's name. It is huge block letters. This is just massive, massive, out of control ego. And people respond to it as like, oh, his ego is better. He must be better. His ego is even bigger than the other guys. He's got the biggest name. It's got a huge billboard as just his name on it, and that's all, you know. That's the kind of things that commercial filmmakers do. I never really went that far, but I can tell you there was some of that in me for sure. There was ego in there. And it wasn't until I started letting that go and letting everybody perform on the set to the best of their ability and not controlled so much that things really started becoming special. And that's when I started winning the awards and things. Not by my control or my ego or my will or power, but by letting that go. More and more letting it go. So everything in my life has been directing me to this, to letting go, to letting something else come forward, letting something else speak. You know? I mean, healing was like that too. That was a little easier for me because I knew nothing. I knew nothing about this kind of energy healing. I didn't have any names. I wasn't living in Sedona at the time. I didn't know anything about this. Nobody I knew anything about it. And yet it just started happening. And I couldn't deny that. That could not be denied. It was miraculous to me. I couldn't understand it. And when I tried to understand it, it was very clear. It was showing me, you don't need to understand it. You don't need to learn anything about it. It will happen, and it will always be different. It will always surprise you. There's nothing that you can do to prepare for this. Just be present and surrender. And that's when amazing things happen. Just like the talk at the Thich Nhat Hanh retreat and all the healings and what I do in Satsang now. I don't know anything. I don't need to know anything. And I realize that. If you feel that you still need to know something, that not knowing makes you insecure and nervous and fearful and feeling everything will fall into chaos, it's because you don't realize that you don't need to know anything. That you are infinite knowing. Your mind doesn't have to know anything. Your infinite knowing doesn't need to learn anything. It knows absolutely everything that will ever exist, that has ever existed. And it's a lot. It's too much to fit into your mind. So it comes as it comes. It comes in the moment as it's needed. There's no preparation for this. In truth, there's no preparation for life. I have a friend who's a Zen priest, and he was kind of scarred in the Vietnam War, very major PTSD. He just wanted to die, basically, and he was choosing heroin as a way of hopefully overdosing or something. He wasn't going to cut his wrist or hang himself. He was just slowly going to kill himself through heroin addiction. And his encounter with Thich Nhat Hanh changed everything. And so he got off heroin, eventually became a Zen priest, and he would walk across country on pilgrimage without a cent. His robes, begging bowl, and that's it. And he'd walk from one end of the US back and forth, like Peace Pilgrim did, very much the same as that. He also went to Kosovo during the war there, that terrible war, and he walked, when there was fighting, he would walk in between where people were shooting at each other, you know, with the begging bowl. I mean, might think he was still trying to kill himself, but he wanted to bring peace in that way, and he did. The energy of peace in him was so strong that when he did that, people stopped shooting and they stopped fighting. So it was an amazing guy. And so after meeting him the first time, he told me about this pilgrimage that he was doing, and he said sometimes he takes people with him on the pilgrimage. And at the time I had a young daughter, and very young, only like I think 4 or 5 years old, and a new marriage. And, you know, I felt, well, I had a responsibility to them. I had my job and everything. So I said, you know, I would love to go with you. This is amazing to just be so open, to just walk across country with nothing and just see what happens, being present every moment, whether you get food, whether you go without food, whether you have a place to sleep, whether you starve to death, whether you freeze to death, whatever happens in this moment, you let this moment be. And it appealed to me. I was very attracted to it, but I said, but I'm not ready yet, meaning I need to tell my wife and, you know, my daughter, make arrangements for them and make arrangements with work and my clients, have someone take over until I get back. And his response was, do you think anyone's ready for this? That's a Zen answer, isn't it? Because it penetrates deeply. Do you think anyone is ready for this? In other words, is he ever ready? Even though he's done this for years, every single time, is he ever ready? He's never ready. He's just present. You can't be ready for this. You can't be ready for life. You just step in. You just open up. You just are. And then, moment by moment, you see. You see what life is presenting, and you respond accordingly. You be present. That's really the secret. That's the secret to life. That's the secret to your entire life. Be present. Be present. Your thoughts are a major interference to being present. Your thoughts are saying, no, 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 I got it. I figured it out. This is how it is. This is what presence is. It's nothing like that. Presence is beyond all thought. It's real. It's life. Life, reality, are beyond all thinking and all thought. Look at our society. We keep trying to understand. Even quantum physics, which the best of quantum physics is the things they discover are kind of like a cone, because it just blows all the structure of all your beliefs and thoughts out of your mind, which is wonderful. But they're actually trying to get to a solution, you know, through thinking. You don't need to do that. Life is already taking care of it. Just be present. Just be present. That's it. What did I do when I went up and spoke in front of 1,500 people without knowing anything? I was present. in that moment, I was present because there was nothing else to do. What else was I going to do? I mean, I could run off the stage, I suppose, or stand up and apologize because I had nothing to say. But those things didn't really occur to me. I felt a responsibility to be there and to answer these deep questions that I felt from 3 different people in the audience. I felt a responsibility. So I had to stand there and be present. I didn't have anything else. And what happens with healing? The same, really. If I think I know what I'm doing, I'm just fooling myself. It's just ego. It's just ignorance. But when I know nothing, I'm present. I'm present for what is in this moment, what this moment calls for. And trust me, this moment will always tell you. It's not keeping anything from you. You know, one of the things about being with learning from the mountains here, rocks. Do I have a rock here? No, I have a leaf. I have a leaf. How still this is. How perfect. And you know what this leaf is? Even though it's not attached to a living tree anymore, it's still present, isn't it? It's present as what it is. And it's not trying to tell you what it is. It's not trying to make some definition or hide anything. It's just simply what it is. It just is. So it's present. It's present. And that's what Thunder Mountain is to me. It's present. It's absolutely and completely present. And so when I'm with Thunder Mountain, when I see Thunder Mountain, when I'm close to it, I'm present like that too. And because Thunder Mountain can never be apart from me, nor anything else, that presence is always in me. The secret to spiritual awakening and enlightenment and the fulfillment and the totality of what you are, of complete and absolute peace, contentment and love, and unlimited wisdom, is not attaining anything. It's letting go of illusion. All illusion. Just letting go of everything. That's the only way you're going to know. You're not going to say, well, this thought is illusion and that's not. Forget about it. It's all illusion. Every thought you have is illusion. You're thinking that you can know what's illusion, what isn't illusion, is illusion. It's total ignorance. So give it up. Give it up. Just let the thoughts go, all of them. Let everything go. And what's left will be truth. I guarantee you. What's left after you give up everything is always truth, because truth is always here. The things that are unchanging and cannot be gotten rid of or changed are always here. So when we let go of everything, this is what we've got. Truth, reality, our true nature, God. All our efforts to describe it and say, God is this, God is that, God is light, God is peace, God is love, God is this, God is that. It's all bullshit. I'm sorry. It is. You know, it's our own mind's bullshit. It's not bad to try these things, but you have to know if you really want to wake up, you've got to let go of it. You don't know anything. All this knowledge that you've attained, you have to let it all go. The Bhagavad Gita, the Heart Sutra, the Bible, Course in Miracles, all of it. Let it all go. You don't understand. You don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows. Buddha doesn't know. Buddha's awake because Buddha knows he doesn't know. Socrates was awake because he knew that he didn't know. This way we let something else speak that is not our limited, illusionary dream of a separate self. It's something much more than that, much more than our knowing could ever be. And we just be. There is absolutely nothing simpler than full enlightenment. There is absolutely nothing simpler. So all the complex thoughts and theories and beliefs are not it. It's much simpler than any of that. There are things that point to this, aren't there? You know, the feeling of, I am pure light. You know, I am light. So that's a pointing to this. So we get like a little aspect of this. We get a little feeling our whole body is like filled with light. So there's a little aspect of that, a kind of a window into what this is. But I'm saying let it all go. Why pick little aspects? Why not just go directly to what you are? To let go of all of it. And just be. This is the true purpose of your life. To be. To the mind, this might sound incredibly lazy. Just being, how hard is that? Well, it's not hard. It's completely effortless. That's what enlightenment is. It isn't all your knowledge, or the knowledge that you're going to receive, that you're going to get. It's the letting go of all of it and just being. Right now, what you can never not be. And this is not your separate self, not your ego self. It's nothing like that. That's just a dream. Let go of that. What's left? Let go of this separate self. What's left? When you let go of everything, what's left? I know the mind wants to say, emptiness, God, love. No, let go of that too. You need to go beyond thought. You need to let all thought go. Not attached to some new thoughts. Just let it all go. Be present. Be. This is exactly why I don't know what I'm going to say. So that this can come. This presence can be here. Whether you feel it or not. I know I do. And it's not a transmission from me to you. Your presence is you. You don't need my transmission. You've got plenty going on in you. You've got the infinite and eternal. everything, the entire totality of all existence. What could be better than that? Nothing. All words are irrelevant to this. Nothing, something, everything. These words are irrelevant. They have no meaning when perceived through this. I, self, I am. These words are also meaningless. What this is so much more. All words, no matter what they are, can never be more than an anchor. If you use them as a pointer and they're good words, you'll immediately let them go. You'll cut the anchor chain so it's no longer an anchor. The words will come and go so that you can experience this. Experience your true being. Experience this totality. Beyond words. Beyond thought. There is nothing for you to do but to let go. That's it. Just let go of all of it. I'll tell you something else interesting about this and letting go and speaking is that when I edit these videos, I don't really edit them, I just put them in YouTube so they don't have on Facebook Live, they kind of go in and out, like they kind of get blurry and then sharp and blurry and sharp according to whatever the signal is on the Wi-Fi. And when I put them on YouTube, it's not like that. It's just, they're all clear throughout the whole thing. So sometimes I do that when I have time to. And while I'm doing it, I look at it and I'm fascinated. Not like thinking like, oh, you're so great. Nothing like that at all. But what comes through is more than me. There's something much deeper than me in it. And that's very clear to me. I have a resonance when I'm watching, and it affects me. It brings me back into this space, if I'm not in this space, or deeper into this space, by looking at these videos. It's interesting. Again, it's so simple and completely effortless. Something comes. And because I don't have such a investment in this separate self ego anymore, it doesn't, I don't have fear. What could happen to me? It doesn't matter. This body's not going to last forever anyways. I'm not clinging to any of it. Not my reputation, not what people think of me. If anything, the body and mind is a servant of this more. It's an expression and a servant of this something more. That's all it is. And when I'm present, there's something more is here. I am the something more. Presence is the something more. All of this is one. All of this is connected. Eckhart Tolle is speaking about presence. Ramana's talking about the self with a capital S. It's all the same. God, it's all the same. Something more, truth, reality, it's all the same thing. There is absolutely no separation here at all. So if you understand this, you can see how all these different theories and different religions and traditions and things, they just all dissolve in this. The words all dissolve. The thoughts and beliefs all dissolve in this and become meaningless. The meaning is the being of this, the truth of this, the reality of this, beyond all thought. Oh, yeah. And when I say things like this deep resonance, experience, feeling, energy, it just becomes so strong. Bliss, love. It becomes infinite. I mean, it always is, but the experience in this body is that, this continuous expansion of that. As these words are spoken. And you know, that's the only thing I know that's true. That's the only way I know truth. Long ago, I knew it had nothing to do with my thoughts or knowledge or anything I ever read or heard from anyone else. It's this direct realization, this direct experience. That's what truth is. And as it expands, as consciousness expands, and the feeling is this great expansion, and this massive energy of, I don't know what to call it, love, peace, they seem small compared to this. And yet they are this. But it's so much more than anything we could conceive of as those things. When words are spoken that point to this, then this feeling is big, you know. So I know, okay, that's true. That's true. And if you ask me, well, explain what you mean by that, I wouldn't bother trying. It would just be a way of distracting from it, pushing you away from it, and me too. I don't want to do that. This is beyond words and thoughts. And yet, you are beyond words and thoughts. The truth of what you are, the truth of what everything is beyond words and thoughts. So let go of all words and thoughts, all beliefs, just for a moment. Let it all go. And pay attention to what remains. Settle deeply, relax into what remains.